Esther Povitsky is supposedly a comedian. Khalyla Kuhn is not a comic, but she's been on a comedy podcast for over a decade, I think. So these people are around comedy, and they host Trash Tuesday, which used to feature Annie Letterman. Annie Letterman no longer on that show. And these two are holding down the fort. And they had Rick Glassman on, who I find very funny, as well as Brent Morin, who I don't know as much about, aside from doing Rick Glassman's podcast. I haven't seen a ton of his stuff. But I always find Rick Glassman funny on podcasts, so I checked this out to see what it was about. Also, Unique. I saw Unique posted a clip. For some reason, Unique titled it Khalyla and Rick Glassman Go At It. Khalyla didn't really have much of a part in this, but I still found it very strange that a comedian handled Rick Glassman's jokes this way. If you don't know Rick Glassman, we've talked about him before, but he's a bits guy. And these two know each other. Esther and Rick did a podcast together. So if anyone knows Rick Glassman's bits, I would think it would be Esther. But this is a weird way to handle his joking. I think it starts out light and then progresses throughout the episode.
Rick Glassman famously stole our Jerry Seinfeld bit. That's how I remember.
Is that right?
Yeah, you remember he had Jerry. He was talking to Jerry, and we had the Jerry game show. I do.
Oh, all right.
It's called Early Jab.
Yeah, so he starts doing this. He does a thing, and he just did it. I watched this episode with Jay Moore. He had Jay Moore on his podcast, and he does a thing where he kind of starts off mic, and Jay Moore's talking to him and being polite, and Rick Glassman sits down and goes, all right, let's get this over with. And then turns the mic, acts like he's turning the mics on, but they're already on. But he does that fucking around. He did that to these two a little bit early on, and he had other jabs like this, kind of making fun of their podcast.
I agree, because adult Rick and kid Rick both don't want to do the thing, whatever the thing might be.
Mm-hmm. What's an example for adult
The easiest
Rick?
one, where this became conscious that I was using this as a tool is...
Where's the jokes?
You said you guys didn't want them.
You said you did want them.
I did, but you guys like what your podcast has become. So I'm just, I'm trying not to control everything.
So he's fucking around. He's making jokes that their podcasts are boring. They're like, hey, stop saying that. So he makes jokes back. But you hear Esther be like, where's the jokes? Fucking with Rick. So it's interesting how they take it. This is a wild episode of a comedy podcast to me, once you see where it goes.
Like an owl.
Seeing the bigger picture. Hey, listen, you're really focused on this one episode being boring, but look at all of your boring episodes.
But
this is just what the show is.
Okay,
but if I'm looking at a tree with an owl in a forest, I'm going to look at that tree because of the owl.
Esther, I want to hold space for Esther.
How do you feel when he does that? Oh, your show is not funny anymore. It's boring all the time. Where does that land with you?
I don't know. It's mean. It's mean.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make me feel good.
He's fucking around. It doesn't make me feel good. No shit. He's making a joke at your expense.
Do not send Khalyla to a roast. She will not understand what's going on.
This is the craziest reaction to fairly tame jokes.
Then I have trouble telling you that because I feel like you'll just say something meaner back.
Yes! Yes!
Okay.
Yes!
So when I saw that, when I saw Esther react like that, I was like, maybe they're doing a thing back to him, maybe now they're fucking with him back, I guess. So I had hope for this, but we'll continue.
I feel like you can say that, but if I said that, I would just get pounded and pummeled even further.
Because I'm not as quick as
I
you.
was trying to stay quiet, but I can't.
I think that's
Oh my God.
Here's where I have trouble in life a lot. And I hope you'll give me maybe 30 seconds to finish this thought without saying wrap it up or let's get it over with. I think that
But that's his thing. They're like, hey, don't do your thing, Rick. Could you do me a favor? Could you be a different type of comic for a while? Don't invite Rick on if you don't find that shit funny.
I'm so confused by the comedy or lack of, or what. What was he supposed to do here?
Rick was being funny. He's like, hey, you used to do a comedy podcast. It's become whatever this is now. That's a funny line.
Yeah. He basically they said, you're too funny, and then we have to be funny, and then you'll be even funnier, and we can't handle any of the funny that's coming on.
You're right. There's an ego thing happening where it's like, hey, stop being the funny one on our show. That's annoying us.
so deeply, but you're so brilliant and you're so quick. It's sometimes hard to contend with that and tell you how I truly feel, because I feel like you're just gonna trample it because you're
comedy,
smarter
then.
than me, you're quicker than me, and your brain is connected to your mouth, and therefore you're able to get your thoughts much quicker. Versus me, it takes time to process. So I'll leave here feeling like, gosh, why did Rick say
How
that to me?
unfair. Poor Rick Glassman sitting there as a polite man, sitting there taking this. They're literally telling him, you're too funny to be on this podcast. Stop being so much funnier than us.
Your funny hurts my brain. I'm going to have to think about this afterward.
Hey, listen, you're really quick and smart and funny, and I'm not so much, and stuff takes me a while. So could you pull back a lot, please?
Yeah. You got a story where maybe you banged your sister? This is my level. This is my level.
Yeah.
Times about our show and probably never say it to you because I have trouble contending with fast speakers. Does that make sense?
Wow.
And
But then also on the same note, I truly, truly love you. But also
it's confusing.
It is.
Can you imagine having whoever the fuck? I don't want to oversell what Rick Glassman is as a comedian, so don't think I'm comparing him to these people. But imagine if you had fucking Rodney on your show and you were like, hey, enough with all the jokes. You're slamming me with, if you had fucking Rickles and you're like, hey, you're making fun of me too much and I'm not quick enough to make fun of you back. It's like, well, so you're not supposed to. It's fine. Let him slam you.
I would have just said, well, thank God you're here making our show fun again.
Right, yes.
Something like that. Come back with something. Don't be like, my feelings are hurt.
It's actually, it's a rare pearl of wisdom that Opie had. And it is funny because essentially what he's saying is like, you can be lazy and still make millions. But if you take it for what it is, I think it's actually an interesting thought where Opie said, and he didn't live by this code, but it was a good thought, where he was like, hey, if Patrice and Louis C.K. and Colin Quinn and all these people are on our show being funny, at the end of the day, people say, man, that was a great episode of the Opie and Anthony show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like I said, Opie didn't always live by that code, but it is a great philosophy to be like, people being funny on our show is a good thing. Like Rick Glassman roasting them and being funny, it's like, hey, this episode of Trash Tuesdays was really funny. But their egos got in the way, and they're like, hey, Rick, pull it way back. You're too funny for us.
Khalyla thinks she's with auctioneers. They're talking too fast.
Yeah. Which, by the way, what he said was not that high concept. He called her show boring. It's not like, wait, what? Give me time to process this.
I need time to respond. Give me a day.
And I would also like to add, like
short
it's
bus.
honestly really, and I'm sorry, like I wanted to wait and like say cut or whatever, but like I feel like it was really hard just now when we were starting and you said that I said I didn't want to have Brent on without you because it wouldn't do good numbers. Like,
let me explain that.
I don't remember saying.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So let me explain that. So Brent and Rick are friends that have been friends for a long time in comedy. They were on an NBC show together. They do each other's podcasts all the time. Like, and you can tell when you listen to them, they're good friends. And Rick made a joke, like, it's better. I'm not doing it justice, but the joke was basically like, they had to invite me on with Brent so the numbers wouldn't tank or whatever. Like basically Rick saying like, I'm more popular than Brent. That was the joke. Brent didn't have a problem with it. Esther is saying, hey, now Brent is going to think I invited you here because if he was on, no one would watch. And you're just like, what? This is like if you invited your wife to come in and do a show with you. But Esther's a comedian. Like, Esther's the host of the show.
I want to hug DJ ELECTRA right now. Just because, this woman gets it, and this woman does not.
Yeah.
That I might have. I say
no,
that
you
sometimes.
didn't. I'm sorry.
Oh.
You did. She didn't. She never said that.
I never
that
thought
was-
he did.
No,
But that was so.
Thank you. Brent, by the way, is very funny. He'll throw in a couple lines here and there. He was
You'd have
very
to be.
funny as like color commentary throughout this.
Yes.
Why would he think that Rick was insulting him? If Esther actually said that, you wouldn't say it into the microphone.
I'm very confused by this Esther lady. Is she
It's
pretty?
weird.
I don't know. I can't tell.
It's weird. I don't know.
So like mean, and I felt like it was mean to Brent, but it was coming from me in that way that you packaged it. And then he said something bad about himself. Like, yeah, I get it. And I'm just like sitting here thinking like, oh my God, does Brent think that I said that? And
so
like,
that was the joke. Rick goes, yeah, they said they invited me on so the numbers wouldn't tank with just Brent. And Brent goes, nah, I get it. That's him understanding the joke.
Numbers. Yeah, numbers.
Yeah, that's him improving with Rick.
Yeah.
An asshole, and I'm like thrown off by it. And it was just, but then I know if I say something, then you'll be like, I was just joking. And then I'm like, okay, well, should I not
Esther's
have said
comedy
anything?
philosophy
I
is
don't know.
no but.
Yeah.
If Rick says something, you go, no. But what's actually true is that Brent is a great comedian and successful in his own right.
If this was a bit, she's hilarious, right? Like if she was doing this like to fuck with him because he's known to fucking with everyone else, so you come on the show and act like a lady that's upset.
And
brilliant.
Yeah. And to be fair, like I said, I watched Jay Moore on Rick's podcast a couple weeks, and there were a couple times where you can't tell if Jay knows Rick's joking and is going along with the bit, or he's actually annoyed at him. That happens a lot on Glassman's podcast. So to be fair, like he's hard to read at times, but Rick will stop and be like, I was joking when I said that, right? Like he will call it out. So he's like very good at that. But to be like, hey, you have to stop making fun of us because we're not quick or funny enough to respond to it. That's a weird instinct.
It's a lame.
Yeah, if it wasn't a bit, I think they should just start a therapy podcast, maybe, go into some psychiatry. I don't know.
Here's what's weird, Electra. They did a podcast together where Rick, they had this dynamic of Rick and Esther basically shit on each other. Like, I've heard Esther on Rick's show, and it's jokingly contentious. That's their dynamic.
Yeah.
So that's what I really don't get about this.
I've seen her stand up before, and she can be funny.
I don't know. I don't know her. I don't know her stand up at all. I've heard her on podcasts. I've never had an opinion of her one way or the other, really.
Gotcha.
This next one's called Rules.
Yeah, well, the rules are laid down here, which Rick needs a very specific set of apparently because he's broken them.
And I know how to spell rules, people. I just write it like Mike writes it because I think it's
Rules.
You told me how.
Obviously, why? Obviously, there's a typo.
I don't know sometimes. I don't know if there's inside jokes or
What would the
things going
joke
on.
be?
I don't know.
All right.
get
Well, I
scared.
apologize, folks. I made a typo, which is apparently hilarious.
Told me this a while ago, then we would have had this conversation a while ago. Not putting that on you, and I understand you didn't feel comfortable doing it, but I had no idea you guys felt that way.
I think it's a little bit like, do we let him just go off and shine because you are so funny? I would never want to stifle like anything you do. So it's like, we'll figure it out in post.
But like I think it's maybe just certain subject matter, or it just
I don't know what those subject matters are because we've had this when we did Rick and Esther. Like there are times where it's just boom, 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 and then there's times where your feelings would get hurt, and I'm like, which is valid. I just like, I don't know what the rules are apparently.
I think it's not that there are rules. It's just that when I'm sitting here and now twice there's been a joke about how our show is not funny and is boring. I'm like, what is that? Why?
But no one, particularly a friend, no one would come on and say that seriously. Like that. It's clearly a joke. If Rick thought the show was, he wouldn't have done it. You know what I mean? Like by him being there, it's clearly a joke. Now, I get, like, if you're meeting Rick for the first time, you're kind of like, what the fuck is this? They've known each other for years. That's what's so odd about this. And that has to be exhausting as a guy like Rick, who's done many, many podcasts with her.
It's a cell phone, Mike. I didn't even think about how terrible the podcast was until she keeps bringing it up. And now I'm like, you know what? It is kind of terrible.
Well, here's where this comes from. I think this podcast, I think they still do fairly well, but I think the numbers have really dropped off since Annie Letterman left. So that's where this comes from. It's all insecurity of like, oh, you're saying now that Annie left, we suck. And Rick's like, oh, what? I didn't know. Because like Esther, I'm sure that's in the comments all the time. The show sucks without Annie. Bring Annie back, all that shit. I'm sure they get that all the time. So Esther's saying like, oh, you're one of these commenters saying bring Annie back. Whereas Rick's like, I don't follow that close enough to even know it's a thing,
I gotcha.
I am feeling a little defensive right now.
Okay.
Because you say things, and I can't think of a specific example like that.
That's okay.
But you say things like that to me all the time. You'll snore while I'm talking. You're saying I'm boring. When we're on my podcast and I'm doing some of my silly animations, you're like, this is stupid. Why would you do that? This is, and like you make fun of that stuff. And I believe both that you respect me and that you might not like those jokes or those animated those things. And there's truth and there's silliness and like, we're different. I am able to receive things in a certain way, not for better or for worse, differently than you. And it's easy to get confused of like, oh, I could take this, so she can, when that's not necessarily the case. But I will say the rules are not something that I came into our relationship with, rather something that we calibrated together. And there are times where the same thing.
It's like a married couple having this fucking argument.
Goddamn. When's the comedy start?
When all the guy was trying to do was be funny on a podcast that like I wouldn't have listened to if it wasn't for Rick Glassman. So like he's helping them, and they're like, "Hey, stop being funny."
Well, he's doing what they want. No one is now funny on the show. They have got it too hot. Double standard is what this one's called.
Yeah, so this felt a little like, hey, I'm allowed to do that to you. Like I can call you boring and snore through your stories, but please don't do that to me, which doesn't feel like a great comedy duo.
And it's like, I remember we did an episode once where I was talking about something and then I'm like, and then this girl went blah, blah, blah. It was a very maybe PG-13, if not PG joke, and you lost it. And I was like, oh, okay.
What does lost it mean, though? That's like, sounds
I would
like
love to cut to a clip. Ew. See, it makes me not even want to be doing this with you.
But see, that's funny.
Whether it's funny or not.
But see, like Esther's like, oh, that's funny that I said I don't want to be doing this with you. That's what Rick just did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? he came in and shit on you the way you shit on him. And she's like, oh, but when I did it, it was so funny. Yeah, right.
Getting
Okay.
bipolar vibes from her.
It's weird to not see that, to go, yeah, but that was funny. It's weird to not see like, oh shit, right. That's what I just criticized you for.
Imagine Larry Fine showing up to set one day. He's like, hey guys, no slapping today. Let's just no funny today.
And then, but then he pokes Mo in the eyes.
I said no poking. You didn't say poking.
It was you judging what I was doing, saying it was not good.
In a comedic way.
Sure,
Yeah.
in your comedic way.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is, right, those are the rules that we've established.
Yes.
So in my comedic way, when I'm like, I mean, we do this stuff all the time. We used to do this on Undateable when it was like, when something happens and we go, and the ratings are going down in that moment. It's just, we're self-deprecating. We make jokes about each other, about other people. Now, there are some people you can't do that with.
Do that live on TV.
It is a little confusing with you because you do it all the time. And
I do what all the time?
punch and make fun.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that I punch all the time.
Okay, well,
But
to me, I receive it that way, and I like it.
You know, Rick is 100% right. I was glad Rick stood up for himself because, like, I think there might be an instinct to be like, oh shit, I'm sorry. But like, I was glad he was like, well, this is kind of bullshit. Like he was sorry, he apologized, but he's like, this is kind of bullshit that you're doing this to me, you know? I appreciated that.
This next one's called Punching Down. And these two should just fuck already, I think. Is what's going on here.
There's a lot of sexual tension, perhaps.
Yes.
But yeah.
Too sensitive with each other, you know?
This is what
each other's genitals, Mike.
This is what I think is crazy, is putting yourself in like a victim position and be like, well, you can make fun of other things, but it's not right to make fun of me because that's punching down in some way. Like that's when you've made yourself, you should remove yourself from comedy if you think you're above being mocked.
So what I've just learned is there's a sensitivity to maybe talking about the show as a whole. Check.
To be honest, it feels like punching down, right? Because your podcast is more successful than ours, and it feels
gives
like
a
you're
shit?
coming on our.
If Rick Glassman came on here and did that, he's infinitely bigger than my podcast. If he came on here, I would invite him on to do that, and he should do that, and it would still be funny, you know? Like if he was genuinely being an asshole, but he made funny comments. He wasn't being a dick to you, and you've known him. It's weird to watch this argument between people who know each other, because I would understand it if it was someone meeting Rick for the first time. It's hard to read him, whatever. It's weird that these are two people that did a show together for some amount of time.
they're way too sensitive to each other. Like, so you're right. It almost seems like either that or they did a show together and they just like know each other's foibles and Piccadilly so much that they just walking on eggshells completely.
Right.
Podcast and saying and I know you said you don't know our numbers, but the last time we had a phone call we were talking numbers. Maybe you don't remember. I don't expect you to remember everything we say to each other, but I was telling you our numbers and compared to yours, and they are much lower. And so I think that's where when it feels like you're punching down. When you call me ugly, I don't give a fuck, because I personally don't think you're punching down. I think I'm prettier than you. But
see, like, what? Hold on. Why is that's funny for her to say? Like, good for her. Why isn't that abusive? Why isn't that punching down to insult Rick in that way?
Because she feels good doing it, Mike.
It's like, it's weird that she keeps just detracting from what she's saying. It's like, no, I can slam you. Like, if she just stopped making fun of him throughout this, I'd be like, okay, she's anti-joke in general. But she keeps peppering in digs at him and then being like, please don't make fun of me. You're punching down.
I think this is how she knows how to get him off his game. And so she's got him off his game, and now he's in defensive.
I guess, but I think Rick's much better at arguing this point than her.
Oh, she has no shot.
Yeah.
But she's doing the best she can.
do you feel that when you come on our podcast and you say your numbers are bad and it's boring, I go, ugh, you know, it's almost like if Scarlett Johansson walked in the room and was like, Esther, you're ugly and you're never going to be acting and in movies. I'd be like, why the fuck are you saying that to me?
Is it like that? Is it like if a stranger who's massively famous walked in and said, you're ugly and you're never going to be in movies? Is that like a friend telling an obvious joke and doing like a character that he's done a million times? Is it exactly like that?
I'm convinced she's doing a bit.
Wasn't I making similar jokes to you guys on Tiger Belly? And like, oh, this is this, and stuff more to Bobby than to you. Like, I would be punching Bobby too.
Again, you might not be viewing it that way. That's the way I'm receiving it, as it feels like punching down. I'm not saying that you're on purpose punching down.
Well, I'm sorry.
I've heard people like my guy Royce say this. My buddy, when I was on ROTC, I think Royce mentioned this, or maybe Mersh. They said there's something happening with like LA comics in particular, where it turns into a therapy session a lot. And sometimes I enjoy that in podcasts. I actually don't mind that. But there are times where it's like, you are now dissecting jokes and the meaning of them and how they make you feel to a degree that is detrimental to... There's comedy happening on your show. A guy was being funny. And you slam the brakes on that to have a discussion about how it makes you feel, forcing there to be no more jokes the rest of this podcast. It's a crazy mindset for a comedian on a show, by the way, called Trash Tuesday. It's not the Good Times Hour. It's called Trash Tuesday.
Go to blindmike.net for everything Blind Mike. Look at me. I did it. Krager's did it.